Did they leave it in ashes or did they rebuild it? So what we do is we leave it in ashes and then complain indefinitely. We're going to give you 10 seconds. What you got for us?
Okay, my question is that, do you believe that it's possible that intellectually, like, white folks, like, could be better than black folks? Like, is it possible you think maybe genetically,
Good question.
like,
Yeah, I'll answer that.
maybe they're
I'm going to pull you
superior?
off screen because you're a bit blurry, but I'm going to answer your question. Thank you for that. He asked, is it possible that Caucasoids could be the intellectual superior of Negroids on a genetic level, which is to say that they are born to be smarter or more intellectually capable? Is it possible? Yes, it's absolutely possible. Is it possible the other way around? Absolutely. What I've become fascinated with more so is not what is your capacity, but what are you actually using of your capacity? And the greatest determinants of what you will use of your capacity is culture. You see, if you look at the culture of the Asian today, I actually did a piece on this for my master's thesis. You look at the culture of the ethnic Chinese, they spend more time in family, meaning the children are with their parents more time than kids in the West. Secondly, they spend more time studying. So when you look at certain metrics like that, you see that their educational outcomes are not a reflection of inherent IQ, but rather a reflection of family structure, culture, and expectations. Now, further, let's talk about the IQ thing, the genetic thing. What you want to consider, and I surmise that this is the case, it may never be proven. Frankly, I really don't care. But if you look at the environment in which the Europeans or the whites evolved, and you look at the environment in which the blacks or the Africans or the Negroids evolved, these are two radically different environments. You have one environment that's reasonably hospitable, that is of Africa. And you had, like, for example, you track the Bantu migrations, you see that they were moving throughout the continent, unfettered and able to travel and hunt big game. And you have lush places in the continent, and you don't have harsh winters. Harsh winters are what you have in Europe. This requires planning. Harsh winters create scarcity. So, for example, if you're living in a place and you have fruit growing from the trees and then a winter occurs, all of a sudden there's no fruit on the trees. You can't scavenge for berries. All of a sudden you have to figure out how to hunt animals effectively. And most importantly, if you want to have a balanced diet that includes fruits, berries, nuts, things like that, you would have had to have thought in advance of the winter and prepared for that. Further, now that you have scarcity, there is less game to hunt. Certain animals are hibernating. You have to compete with others, which would say this would make the European a better planner. This would make the European more ruthless. This would make the European tend to operate in teams better, a small hunting team. So I think that those are things that probably bled into culture as a result of the environment. And often you'll find that when you look at philosophy, the philosophers will give an explanation of a people which results from their material environment. For example, Marx was a materialist philosopher. I'm going to take a pause for the cause, give you guys some time to go ahead and hit that like button, because if this ain't education, what is? What is? And if you black, listen, let the white folks take a break. Let the Asians take a break. If you black, send in your tuition right now, because I'm your black daddy. You heard me? I taught you all the things a good black father should have taught you. The knowledge of self, which you are greatly devoid of. And let me tell you something about black people today. Because they grew up in an integrated society instead of a segregated society, they didn't learn how to build and do for self. So they wait. They wait on someone else to fix their roads. They wait on someone else to fix the policing in their neighborhood. What do the Jewish people do? They build the hospital. They have their own police. You're like, Marquette, is that legal? It don't matter. They did it anyways. But what do? You wait for the white police to treat you better instead of creating black police that you run. You wait. If you're a black person on this live and you haven't sent in tuition, send it. I'm your black university. Read that for me.
It says R.E. Harris says that black people did create their own police, but the government tore it down. It was called the Black Panthers. Same with the Wall Street in Oklahoma.
See, this is the problem with the black mentality. See, this is why I really am always so thankful for the students that come to me and they learn. Like, if you like I highly recommend people take Boss University. I really recommend it because it's so global in the way that it lifts you up. It lifts you up economically. It lifts up your character and your mentality, your manliness. So listen to this. Black people have been so coddled in recent decades. They've been treated as children. You see what happens to a child when a child tries to do something and it doesn't go right. What do? They get frustrated and they cry. They complain. They try to build something with their Legos or they're playing Jenga and everything falls down. Oh, and then they need their parent or their father or their mother or the government. Oh, it's okay. Here, I'll rebuild it for you. I'll do it for. No, don't do it. I'll do it for you. Don't build up your own policing force. I'll do it for you. Now, here's the thing. Whether it's true that the Black Panther Party was destroyed and the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was destroyed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and that is well documented. They also destroyed many other Black things. Whether Black Wall Street was bombed, whether or not that's true, what happens after your enemy destroys something of yours? You either attack back or you rebuild. You see, that's a man's mentality. I don't have time to mourn the ashes of a burned bridge. I need to start building another bridge. And guess what? When I build this next bridge, it's going to be stronger, more fortified, and I'm going to know to protect it. And let me give a message to the Blacks. If the whites are your enemies, and some of you still believe this, if the whites are your enemies today, then why don't you start taking some precautions? Like, why don't you start like preparing for that or behaving appropriately? The thinking of the Hoteps is so backwards that they would say the whites are our enemies, and then they'd say, pay us reparations. Hold on. So you think they're your enemies, which means your enemies, they hate you. Your enemies want to take you out, but you think they're going to reach in their pocket and give you some money? What? That's not even sensible. And that is the bipolar, foolish, illogical position that most Blacks have. And they have this because in some cases, they're just flat out dumb. And in most cases, just they're uneducated. They've gotten a miseducation. And Carter G. Woodson talks about this. If you would click the link below, which I don't think is there, but if you would go to amazon.com/shop/the Saint and the Sinner, I have a book there by Carter G. Woodson. It talks about the miseducation of the Negro. And most of what you find in your educated Blacks or your Black intellectual, whether we're talking about a Cornel West, a Michael Eric Dyson, whoever you want to name that you think is Black and smart, a Tariq Nasheed, a Dr. Umar Johnson, they might be intellectuals, they might be well-read, they might be articulate, good preachers, but none of them are good builders. None of them are businessmen, and none of them are revolutionaries. None of them are actual leaders. And when you study the men who have been great in history, what you'll find consistently is that there's a trail of blood behind those men. I just want to be frank with you. There's a trail of blood. The Black men have been fearful. You cannot be a revolutionary unless you're willing to spill blood. And this is what I mean. You have to fight. If you want a better position, please know if you want to get to the top, there's already somebody there. And guess what? They don't want you there. So if you'd like to take their position or get some of what they got, power and money, you're going to have to fight. You look at all the men in history who matter. Hannibal Barca, Julius Caesar, Napoleon Bonaparte, and the list goes on. These were all men, trail of blood behind them. Or look at the Americans. George Washington. He was a military guy, wasn't he? Wasn't he a general? Yeah. You look at Thomas Jefferson. Was there a trail of tears, meaning they exterminated the Aboriginals here, the Native Americans as we call them? Yeah, all the guys we respect, our founding fathers, cold killers. Cold killers. So you're looking at dealing with the most ruthless, vicious conqueror. If from a people perspective, like the Caucasoid is the most vicious, ruthless conqueror ever. So you telling me you're going to deal with him and send a fucking preacher? You're going to deal with that guy and send Martin Luther King? Talking about, I have a dream. Bruh, didn't he get killed by violence? He non-violent, but died by violence. That should teach you something. So here's the thing. You need an actual revolutionary. You need a businessman. So specifically with regards to this, they destroy your policing force. You rebuild the policing force. You rebuild paramilitary. You get position in a stronghold. You figure out, are there others who have been successful? These are basics in business. Who's winning? The Jewish people are winning. How did they win? What can we learn from them? They destroy Black Wall Street. You rebuild it. You don't leave it in ashes. After Iraq was destroyed by the American war hawks, did they leave it in ashes or did they rebuild it? So what we do is we leave it in ashes and then complain indefinitely. Come on.